I want to talk to you on the subject of what do you see? What do you see? See, as we look at our text today, there's a very serious set of circumstances that not only occurred in the time of Moses, Aaron, Caleb, and Joshua, but it's a set of circumstances that repeat themselves time and time again throughout our world today. And unfortunately, it inhabits every church throughout our great land. See, our text tells about a crucial event in the history of Israel. And I believe it's relevant to us because the way they reacted is far too often how we react as well. Amen? See, this is the story of Moses and the people of Israel. As God freed them from slavery in Egypt and led them to the borders of the promised land. When they arrived, God gave Moses a command to send out some people to go explore it. Send out some spies to investigate. And he said, now it is time for us to go and take the land that God has given us. You see, come as you are, I believe that today, the people of God collectively are standing on the borders of our promised land. Amen. Individually, you men and women of God are standing on the borders of your individual promised land. But the question you need to ask yourself and you need to ask your neighbor is, what do you see? Today I want to speak to you just on this topic. I won't worry you long. But first we need to examine the text. Amen. See, Moses was commanded by God to send 12 men to explore the promised land. He chose these 12 men from among the 12 tribes of Israel. Amen. And of these 12, there were two that are of particular importance. There was Joshua, who was the son of Nun, and he represented the tribe of Ephraim. And Caleb, the son of, let me get this right, Jephunneh, representing the tribe of Judah. Amen? Now, after receiving their marching orders from Moses, these 12 fearless explorers trotted off to go check out the promised land. They went off to do what we used to call in the army to get eyes on the objective. Amen? And when they got there, what they saw was truly amazing. When they got there, check this out. They saw a land that was exactly as God had promised them. Amen? How many of y'all know that God is not slack concerning his promises? What God says is going to be, and it's going to be exactly the way that God says it's going to be. Amen? Now, when these guys got there, they liked it so much, they stayed there for 40 days. Amen? They stayed there for 40 days, and the Bible tells us that they saw and partook of the things there so much that, matter of fact, the grapes and the bunches of grapes were so big, it took 2 men to carry them. Amen? That's just how bountiful the fruit was of that land. Now, the Bible tells us that when they got back, they reported to the whole community. Amen? They got back. If you see it in verse 27, it shows us the report to Moses. It says, we entered the land you sent us to explore, and indeed it is a bountiful country, a land flowing with milk and honey. And this is the kind of fruit it produces. Now, just to stop there for a minute and make note, it truly wasn't a land with actual milk and actual honey. More than likely what they were talking about was the presence of bees that produce honey. Amen. And probably a lot of livestock such as goats that could produce milk, which to them would be a land of milk and honey, because if you can get what God has promised, he's provided the tools for you to get it. It is indeed a land of milk and honey. Sometimes we want to see things literally, and when we don't see that, we get all discouraged. Amen. We might have to do a little work to get what God promised us. Amen. And then we want to complain when it's not laid out before us. Amen. So they got there. Well, I don't know about you, but when we get to some place like that, after reading about it for years, after wandering around for decades, that sounds pretty awesome to me. I don't know about you. See, these were men were sent to see a land that was promised them by God himself. And not only did they get to go see it, it was exactly the way he said it would be. Amen? Now, they had been fasting and praying for decades for this land. They went to see it, and it was exactly the way God said it would be now. Everything was going according to how God said it would go, and there it was right in front of them. Can I tell somebody that you've been praying for a blessing that is right there in front of you? You've been praying for a deliverance that's right in front of you. You've been praying for a miracle that is closer than you think. You see, just like the Israelites, your blessing, your miracle, your promised land is just over the next hill. Amen? See, God has saved you for a particular reason. God has brought you to this point in your life for a reason. You may have had to go through some things. You may have had to wander around in the wilderness for a while. You may have had to go through a couple valleys, amen. You may have had to go and do some things you probably didn't understand, or go and do some things that you didn't know why you were doing it. But it's because God was preparing you to enter your promised land, amen. He was preparing you to enter your promised land, but it's going to be about what you see, amen. It's going to be about what you see. That's the question. Ask your neighbor, what do you see? You see, unfortunately, as we see in our text, it doesn't end there. It would be a nice story if it did, wouldn't it? They went to the promised land. They came back and gave a good report. And then they went in and possessed it. That would be a good alternate ending if we were cutting a DVD, wouldn't it? Unfortunately, that's not how it happened. See, what the people of Israel were about to hear is the most nasty, the most disgusting, the most tawdry, reviling, and filthy word known to man. The most joy-stealing word that has ever been invented. See, this is a word that is so bad, it doesn't even need 4 letters to be terrible. Amen? What's that word, you ask? It's a word that we all know entirely too well. But. You know those 3 little letters that can negate a million positive things. You know things like, I would come to church more, but it starts too early. Amen? I would join Come As You Are, but you don't have a building. I promise I would start coming, Pastor Hamilton, but you all don't start at 11:30. Amen? I would like to tithe more, but I got bills to pay. What about you kids? I would do better in school, but the teacher don't like me. Amen? I would behave better, but my parents don't understand me. Amen? I would get a job, but nobody's hiring, right? Lord have mercy. You see, in our text, the poor people of Israel were about to get hit with a big old butt, if you will. Amen? Lord, forgive me. See, just after hearing how the land was just as God had promised, some of the 12 started to tear it down. Amen? You remember what they said? But the people living there are powerful, and their towns are large and fortified. We even saw giants there. I see dead people. You see, the descendants of Anak, the Amalekites, they went on and on and on about the reasons why they couldn't go into that land. What a bummer, right? What a bunch of party poopers. What a bunch of wet blankets, right? Just as the people began to get excited, just as they began to see the light at the end of the tunnel, just as they began to grasp God's promise, here come these cats, right? How many of y'all been through that before?